Is she cheating or am I going insane? A few months ago, I installed a security camera outside our front door primarily for safety, prompted by a shooting in our neighborhood. It wasn't installed out of suspicion towards my wife. About a week ago, my wife came home from work and casually mentioned taking public transit, which is a common mode of transport for her, along with occasional Uber rides if she works very late. I didn't think anything of it at the time. The next day, while reviewing the camera footage, I was looking to see if a package was dropped off. I saw the video of her arrival from the previous night. The camera captures our front door and part of the street. It showed her walking up to the door, pausing to look across the street, smiling and waving as a car pulled away, and then entering the house. It strongly suggested she had been dropped off. I casually asked her if she had taken an Uber home the night before. She initially insisted she had taken transit. When I mentioned the camera footage, she shifted, suggesting maybe it was an Uber and she had forgotten. Sensing something was off, I jokingly asked if she typically waved goodbye to Uber drivers from our doorstep as they waited for her to get inside. This led to further hesitation before she finally admitted it was a coworker. The coworker is a man she has previously mentioned in passing when talking about work or a project she is involved in, who had dropped her off after they both worked late. Naturally, I felt really off. Her story went from transit to maybe Uber I forgot to actually a coworker. I asked if that was the first time he drops her off. She said yes. I pointed out how unusual it seemed to forget being dropped off for the very first time by a coworker, especially when it wasn't her usual routine. This is when she became defensive, accusing me of calling her a liar and claiming it was just an honest mistake due to being tired. While I tried to accept this, I couldn't shake the feeling that her reaction and multiple explanations were illogical. Unable to let it go, I reviewed the camera footage from the week prior. What I discovered, she had been dropped off by the same car multiple times that week alone. Expanding my search to the past month's recordings, as they reset monthly, I found this scenario repeated 2 to 3 times a week. I also discovered instances where the same car picked her up in the morning, specifically on days when I had left for work early. I confronted her again, stating that the footage showed frequent occurrences of her being dropped off by the same car. She looked like a deer in headlights when I said that. She downplayed it again, saying it was just her coworker and I was making a big deal out of nothing. I explained that the hiding and lying about it were what was concerning, not necessarily the act of being dropped off. Why the secrecy if it was innocent? She became defensive again, attempting to turn it back on me by suggesting my checking the footage was obsessive and paranoid. After an hour-long argument, she finally agreed that yeah, it was weird I guess, that she hadn't mentioned it. I asked her directly if there was anything romantic or inappropriate going on with this coworker. She denied it, calling me crazy. We have an open phone policy, though I've never felt the need to use it until this point. I asked to see her phone, and she handed it over. I looked through messages and found nothing that seemed suspicious or indicative of an affair with this coworker. Despite this, I still have trouble believing her. Her initial lies, the shiftiness, the attempt to blame me for being suspicious, and the eventual half-admission have eroded my trust. I also noticed that since the day I found out about the coworker dropping her off, the coworker has completely stopped dropping her off or picking her up, based on the camera footage. To me, this looks like she warned him or tipped him off on my suspicions. Maybe even meeting further away from the house where the camera can't see. I can't let this go, but I am also confused because, outside of this specific issue and her weird behavior when confronted, I haven't noticed the typical signs associated with infidelity. She isn't secretive with her phone, she hasn't become distant, and her general behavior hasn't changed in ways that would make me question her fidelity. We are both incredibly busy with demanding jobs and a 3-year-old and 1-year-old who keep us on our toes, which naturally limits our time together as a couple, but there hasn't been a shift in our dynamic that raised red flags before this. I feel like I'm going insane and I am really struggling to find a logical explanation for this behavior that does not lead to the conclusion that she is cheating on me. I can't discuss this with friends without feeling like I am making her look bad. I'm turning to anonymous help, hoping for some perspective on whether my reaction is warranted or if I am letting paranoia take over. Update. This morning she had a later start to her day. This is not unusual, so I left for work before her. But after dropping the kids off at childcare, instead of driving to work, I came back home and parked farther up the street to avoid being seen. When she eventually left the house, she walked up the street and turned onto the main road where she usually catches public transit. I followed at a distance and saw her getting into his car that was parked there. Up until then, I had held on to a hope that she may have felt uncomfortable about these pickups/drop-offs after our conversation, and that she might have found a way to politely end them. But now, seeing her deliberately walk around the corner to meet his car, out of view of our camera, has confirmed that at the very least, my wife is actively collaborating with another man to conceal their interactions from me, her husband. A faithful partner would never need to do something like this. I am heartbroken and shaking with rage, but I won't say anything to her. I am going to hire a PI to find out the full extent of their relationship and then proceed from there. Thank you to everyone who offered their advice.
Relevant comments. Caston. At this point it's obvious what's going on. She got caught, and now she went underground to hide it more while continuing to do what she lied to OP about. If OP confronts his wife again, she will simply lie to his face again, and then change the story when confronted with evidence to downplay and minimize it. Sadly, it's time to look into divorce. Hiring a PI at this point will likely just be a waste of money, as having further evidence isn't going to actually help with anything unless you live in a state with at-fault divorce where proof of infidelity can affect the outcome. Plus, seeing more evidence can be far more emotionally harmful and put OP in a bad state of mind. Ask me how I know. Get the flimikimalo. Which is why depending on where OP lives it would be important. If they need proof of infidelity, then it's best they do hire the PI, as them getting the proof themselves isn't safe and emotionally taxing. The PI has no emotion connection. They just get the evidence and present the evidence you need to you or your lawyer. I don't believe the PI will be a waste of money considering OP knows her routine now. The PI won't need to do any sort of investigation. It will be very easy to get the shots/footage required and if needed follow them. Super easy case, thus meaning OP isn't going to need to be paying them a ton for a long period of time. Just my 2 cents. I also advised OP get a lawyer consultation as well to be able to accurately take whatever steps are needed.
Update 2. I wanted to share that I have confirmed the affair. I waited outside her office building and saw her leave around 12:30 p.m. with him. They went across the street to get food, then drove to a nearby park and stayed in his car. They ate lunch and chatted, laughed, and made out. Not just kissed, they sat in the car and made out like fugging teenagers. I took a video. Then, they left and went back to work. I don't know how I stopped myself from approaching them and attacking him then and there. The thought of doing something rash and losing my children is probably what stopped me. I am now home and struggling to process what I saw. I feel completely devastated and a profound sense of loss for our family, our children's sense of security, and my own self-worth. I have never felt so completely hopeless in my life before. I will keep it together and move forward for the sake of my children because they are innocent in all of this. I am currently contacting divorce attorneys and scheduling initial consultations. I do not plan to confront my wife about what I saw until I am advised by an attorney. I will keep my distance until then. The volume of responses and attention my posts have received is incredibly overwhelming. While I am grateful for the support, reading comments and different opinions while processing the betrayal is too much right now. I will delete my account, but will leave my posts up so I can review the advice later when I am in a calmer headspace. At this moment, I am unable to make significant decisions and will rely on legal advice from an attorney to guide me through the next steps. Thank you to everyone who offered support and advice.